Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Conversations on Growing episode. We are happy to have the Vice President of the Republican Party of Armenia, Armen Ashotyan, with us again. We want to talk about the state of the Armenian opposition, the strategy of the Republican Party of Armenia, the RPA, all heading towards an important election in Armenia in 2026. Mr. Ashotyan, welcome back to the Growing podcast.
Thank you very much for your another invitation. It's always a pleasure to be hosted by you.
Welcome, Mr. Ashotyan, and we do appreciate your time because unfortunately we weren't able to ask you all the questions we wanted to the last 2 weeks ago. So you've been gracious enough to come back so quickly so we can finish our interview. Essentially, this is a continuation of our interview 2 weeks ago. If you haven't checked that one out, go to our YouTube channel and watch that maybe first, but it doesn't matter. Before we go into Armenian politics, internal Armenian politics, Mr. Ashotyan, I want to talk about the so-called TRIPP or Trump corridor, Trump route, so many different names depending on who you ask. Last week, a U.S. State Department delegation was in Armenia, and they visited Armenia to announce 145 million first tranche in American funding. They called it assistance. Not sure if that's aid, I'm not sure if that's loan, but that was basically to start building the TRIPP, the Trump route. Now, at the August 8th ceremony in Washington, D.C., Trump described this as a 99-year project. So have many others, including his ambassador to Turkey, Tom Barak, and they have also described it as a lease. Now, if you ask Armenian government officials, they say there is no lease, and there's nothing about 99 years. And in fact, when they published the Memorandum of Understanding, after 3 weeks or 2 weeks of delays, they finally published this Memorandum of Understanding signed in Washington, D.C., and also it mentioned nothing about 99 years, nor the word lease. But it's hard to imagine that U.S. is committing so much money to a project without detailed guarantees on how it will be able to recuperate its money. So we want to ask you, and we know that the opposition in Armenian parliament has demanded also details, but so far none have been provided. How can the U.S. invest $145 million without any commitment from Armenia? And what are your thoughts on this TRIPP route in general?
Thank you very much for your another invitation. I told you before, it's always a pleasure to be your guest. Very quick, I will just remind that the Republican Party of Armenia several weeks ago, expressed deep concerns over this trilateral memorandum signed in Washington, D.C. And we are concerned, first of all, because Armenian rulers, Nikol Pashinyan personally, signed this memorandum, it's very clear, under the pressure of Azerbaijan aggression or threat of use of force. It has been signed under unilateral demands and under geopolitical process pressure. So it's very clear that this ceremony wouldn't have happened if Nikol Pashinyan had kept Armenian interests first. So for the world, for the region, for the global players, for the US in particular, it's very natural that any kind of unilateral concessions made in such conflicts by one side are very important as a chance to dictate or to implement their own policies. So we didn't criticize the Trump administration in our statement, our RPA statement. We criticized the approach of the Nikol Pashinyan government to such vital issues, vital for our national interest issues. And there are many points why this memorandum and initialized so-called peace agreement are criticized by our party. First of all, it exclusively expresses only interests of Azerbaijan, so there is no Armenian interest in it. The second important point that it ignored the mandatory requirement of withdrawal of Azerbaijani troops from Armenian sovereign territory. The third point is about Armenian prisoners of war and Artsakh leadership captured by Azerbaijan and kept in Baku prison. So There is no demand to their immediate release. There are no mechanisms of internationally guaranteed security processing there. So it's just a unilateral concession and nothing go. There is no mentioning of Nagorno-Karabakh people rights, any rights. So right to return, right to preserve their cultural and spiritual heritage, etc., etc. So the trilateral memorandum itself is very complicated for Armenian interests because, as I told you, it's very unilateral and there is no Armenian interest reflection in it. For Trump administration, it's another success story because they think that this could lead to the peace process, but everybody out of the big politics, big game, understands that it's not about the peace. It's about ongoing capitulation of Armenia. And this is happening because Armenian people up to now were not able to change Nikol Pashinyan's regime, and he is continuing to trade Armenian national interests for its own guarantees for the power. So it's very clear. Another dimension of the criticism you mentioned in your introductory speeches about the secrets kept from Armenian people. Yes, you are clearly right. We demanded this bilateral agreement to be published between US and Armenia. It has been published after some time. And according to this paper, what we have heard in Washington could be described as just fantasies of the US president. Is it true? Is Mr. Trump a fantaser or storyteller? Not at all. Is Mr. Trump a liar, sorry to say, to American citizens? Not at all. So who is liar in this story when there is a gap between globally broadcasted messages of the US president and the paper published by Armenian government? So there is a deep gap. And in this gap should be filled by one of the liars. Which side is liar? Armenian current government or US administration? It's very clear that the liar side, the storyteller side, the fortune teller side, the coffee cup reader side is not Mr. Trump and his administration. Nikol Pashinyan's government now, by their very aggressive propaganda, is trying to indirectly but very constantly to accuse American president in deceit. Is it true? One of them is a liar. Please tell me. Let's bet on real politics. Who is a liar? Mr. Pashinyan or Mr. Trump? So I am very sure that Armenian government is keeping secrets from its society. It has been promised or guaranteed to American side by Nikol Pashinyan, either by means of secret appendices, I guess. Maybe there are some kind of secret non-disclosed papers about this document, or it has been done orally, I mean, per verba. So it's something that Nikol Pashinyan promised maybe. But knowing how our American administration is acting, regardless the party ruling the country, I don't believe that American side believes in words of Pashinyan. So there is a paper signed with the promises Nikol Pashinyan made, with the promises, with the mechanism, but the American president vocalized during this ceremony. So it's very clear.
Mr. Ashotyan, you just mentioned that the society has been unable until now to remove Pashinyan from this position. But yesterday, your alliance, Badivunem, presented its statement titled "On the Expression of No Confidence in the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia on the Grounds of National Crisis and Failure of Governance." For our listeners, it's important to clarify this is not a formal motion for no confidence. It's an initial statement from the faction. The statement lists an extensive number of reasons why Pashinyan has failed the state and should be removed from his position. Can you please discuss for us the motivations behind issuing this statement?
Exactly. You are very correct in your assessments because, yes, in some media outlets, I have met the wrong, not clear assessment of this state. It's not statement of vote of non-confidence. It's a statement about the necessity of vote, which is a difference. Why? First of all, you know that parliamentary hearings are a very important mechanism for any democratic society, especially for the parliamentary republics like Armenia is, or supposed to be. So by this statement, we are creating a chance for the societal groups, non-parliamentary political forces, leaders, the opinion makers, the societal involved groups to be part of this process. So parliamentary hearings are a very important instrument to make inclusive this process, impeachment process or the vote of non-confidence process should be more inclusive. And this is why our parliamentary faction initialized this document. The second reason is it's another try to mobilize oppositionally placed or oppositionally perceived political forces in the parliament and outside the parliament about the exits from this situation. Because globally, the part of the opposition is discussing elections. Another part is still thinking about the removal of Pashinyan before parliamentary elections. So what is the difference? The difference is very clear. Every day, every week, every month of Pashinyan's regime, of Armenia under Pashinyan's regime, is full of threats, full of risks, is full of new concessions, is full of new dark secrets. You know, Nikol Pashinyan's regime is like an internet. Only the small part is visible. Another part is darknet. So it's dark Nikol. There is a visible Nikol with this populistic level down content speeches, etc. And there is a dark Nikol. Yeah.
Thanks for putting it in technology terms when you're talking to two IT people.
I wasn't aware of your IT background, but yeah, maybe I also understand some things from medicine. You know, it's a kind of technique, but created by the God for the people. So this dark Nikol is much more dangerous, and every day of his regime, as we have seen during these weeks. Just a short reminder. We proposed a vote of non-confidence mechanism for his removal in June. At that time, nobody talked about Washington memorandum. Nobody talked about new attacks on the church. Nobody was aware about imprisonment of Samvel Karapetyan, for example, or bishops, etc. So in June, we proposed, we were alarming about the risks of continuation of Nikol Pashinyan government. In August, in July, we have faced different new manifestations of this disease. So it means that now is September. If parliamentary or non-parliamentary opposition would rely on elections as a mechanism of shifting the power in Armenia, it means that Nikol Pashinyan will get another several months for his dark affairs and secret affairs from Armenian society. So this initiative of the statement of the draft statement is it's another try to gather together, gather around the national flag, to mobilize opposition despite sectorial political interests or very individual political taste. So It's not about party interest, it's about the national interest. So my party has no a partial or divided or special interest in this process. Our interests are shared with majority of Armenian society. So our only interest is to shift the power in Armenia, to change the Nikol Pashinyan's regime, and to have a transitional technocratic government, which will be mandated for the preparation of really free and fair elections. So this kind of action, initiative plus parliamentary hearings, it's another opportunity for the oppositionally minded people to think about the future, because it's not a secret that Nikol Pashinyan's propaganda, unfortunately, is much stronger, much more powerful than oppositional media activity. So our resources are incomparable in that sense.
Mr. Ashotyan, that's we want to talk more about your draft motion, but I just want to, for our foreign listeners who are not familiar with Armenia's details of the Armenian political landscape, I want to mention that there are two opposition factions in the Armenian parliament, Baltivunen, which the Republican Party is a member of, which only has 6 seats. Initially, they had 7, but they now have 6 because of one person, I guess, left the faction. The other faction, which is Hayastan, has 26 seats. They also had initially 1 more seat, but that reduced due to attrition. Now, the process for impeachment is as follows. A valid motion will require the mention of the prime ministerial candidate. The initial motion will require the signature of 36 MPs. For those who did the math already, good. But for those who didn't, there are 32 members in the opposition formally, and just the motion itself requires 36 MPs. And then once the motion is accepted, it will have to gather the votes of at least 54, I believe, if my math is correct, MPs, in order for it to be successful. Can you tell us more about your motion and why? What has been the reaction of the Hayastan faction so far, and how do you propose to pass this challenge of, obviously you would have to get defections from the opposition in order for just the motion to be accepted to get on the agenda, let alone for it to pass?
You described very thoroughly the procedure, but it's not about procedures. Yes, constitution, democracy, it's also about institutions, procedures, yes, but it's also about the public opinion. So you know that the public opinion in Armenia, according to the different surveys, are anti-Pashinyan. So the public opinion should be reflected in political decisions. So why I am underlying this reason? Because it's very clear that to have a success in this vote of non-confidence story, we should also mobilize the streets. The people of Armenia should voice their discontent with Pashinyan's regime. And to do that, it's very important, first, to provide constitutionally based instruments for such a fight, because before that, we had 3 or 4 mass protest actions, demonstrations, movements, let me say, in Armenia against Nikol Pashinyan. Since 2020, November 9, I count 4 movements against Pashinyan regime. And unfortunately, none of them was backed by constitutionally based, constitutionally operational parliamentary instrument. So it is the first time that parliamentary opposition, namely Republican Party of Armenia faction, Baltivunen, as you said, is proposing to build up such kind of constitutional mechanism, which could be coupled with street demonstrations and mass protests. So only mass protests are not leading to the success, and we are It is experience from the previous 4 years. Only constitutional mechanisms are not working because parliament, opposition has no majority in the parliament. It should be combined action, not only synchronization, but also potentiation to make this work. And we do believe that in Armenia, a majority of the people will be ready to vocalize, to voice their protests and discontent with Pashinyan's regime. Once again, they are assured that this time opposition will go in constitutional sense till the end. And this is very important, to go till the end, which is provided by the constitution. I mean, in this sense, this is a vote of non-confidence initiative, which is really maybe the only instrument which hasn't been used by opposition before to try to replace Pashinyan with another more nationally oriented governor. So I am against this myopic contest between oppositional forces, frankly speaking. This contest which is going on is really very myopic. So we are surprised, negatively surprised, with reactions from the biggest opposition faction got up to now. So maybe, and I do hope that these hearings and this initiative could bring another chance for intra-oppositional dialogue, if I am allowed to say that. Because oppositional separatism, I mean, when every political force in opposition is trying to ride their own horse, despite the common race, it's not a proper action. It's not a proper modus operandi to replace Nikol Pashinyan. So oppositional separatism should be stopped. Opposition should be gathered around on the common ground, around the common idea, and the political calculus for this moment should be stopped. And it's very crucial to understand this approach, to spread this approach amid as many oppositional leaders as possible. So as you could see, I am avoiding divisive rhetoric now, because it's I can't say that it was it wasn't war, but it was a contest between opposition. So I want to stop it, to call all the forces who are really interested in replacing Pashinyan and not providing their place under the political sun here in Armenia, because there are also some opposition forces that maybe are driven by their own political ego, not by the common political interests.
Mr. Ashotyan, we are coming to the meat of the matter that we're trying to understand, because there have been differences between Badivunem and Hayastan Dashing. Are these differences, we are trying to understand tactical differences? You are proposing to go down the path of impeachment. Hayastan Dashing seems more interested in going down the path of 2026 elections. And we want to know if the differences between the two parties are completely tactical, or are there deeper issues that are not made public, that the public simply just sits on the side and says, we don't understand why the opposition is unable to do anything. And the other issue is, even when you get, maybe I'll ask you after you respond the first one, but we want to understand how you plan to overcome the mathematics of the fact that between the two oppositions, 26 plus 6 votes, you still are not at 36 votes. You still are not at the 54 votes required for a successful impeachment. How is this process going to succeed? We're trying to understand this.
Two very big and very important questions, let me say. The first one, I will try to answer very short. I want to believe, no, I do believe that the differences between oppositional forces, I mean my party and Dashing, are really tactical. I want to believe in that. And second point, even tactical differences could be crucial now for the country if opposition is not united. So yes, let's call the differences tactical. No, the tactical differences even are not allowed in this vital context. I was very honest in my answer. So the second part of your question, you know, I have some international connections, mainly in Europe. And after being allowed to make a communication after my ban, after my arrest, many of my colleagues in European Parliament, in European political institutions, European parties are asking me, Armen, if everything is so bad, as you describe, as you say, why there is no resistance in your country? Why our ambassadors are not reporting any resistance to Pashinyan policies in your country? And this question, yeah, I understand the cynicism of this question. But on the other hand, they have ground to say it. Because yes, since Sarpazan Paikar, since last year, in this year and a half, Pashinyan faced no resistance, no clear, strong mass resistance for his policies. And impeachment, by the way, if we say about the added value of this process, added value of this process, at least, is to show to the international community that there is constitutionally based, constitutionally guaranteed resistance to his policies. Maybe mathematics is against in this context, but it's not only about the math. And I am coming to another part of your question, how math will be overcome. I have temptation to say very easy, but I know that it's not very easy. The mathematics in the parliament could be and should be overcome by the mathematics on the streets of Armenia. So
you are proposing actually
to combine
dual action, both street
exactly.
action and combined opposition action.
Two components, the dual action, exactly, the parliamentary component and the street protest component. But we can't gather streets, we can't make the people believe that this time they will succeed if we can't convince our oppositional colleagues to join us, you see?
Yeah.
So I can't convince citizens if I can't convince opposition.
Absolutely.
The part of opposition. So to convince people, it's very important to show the opposition united, gathered around the national flag and national interest. In that case, we will get a chance to convey the message of the unity and the last and very important fight against Nikol Pashinyan regime to my fellow citizens.
Mr. Ashotyan, so far we have talked about Badivunem and Hayastan Dashing. Of course, these are the parliamentary opposition. How do we factor in the movement that has the most popularity, including civil contract, the ruling party, and that's Samvel Karapetyan's Mertsevov, Our Way movement?
We are, as a Republican Party of Armenia, we are very eager for his success. We want this movement to be successful first because Samvel Karapetyan is a national asset. And I mean I don't mean money. I mean the type of the nationally thinking or nationally oriented rich man.
Totally
this
understand.
Is very rare. Mm-hmm. Nationally oriented capitalist or entrepreneur, call it as you want. But he is really national asset himself, not his money. Because of the way of thinking, because of the culture of the business he spread in Armenia. Mm-hmm. The nationally oriented capital money are so important, and this is so bright spot in Armenian dark money reality. The second, we are very interested in his success because if in the opposition camp, we could have another very strong oppositional party or center or nucleus. It would only add additional forces to the opposition in this political fight. And the third, it's very important for us to have Samvel Karapetyan released from the prison. And so these three factors are driving our interests towards their success of this movement. So we have no jealousy, we have no hidden motives here. It's very clear we want them to be successful because Samvel Karapetyan is a national asset as a rich man. Samvel Karapetyan should be freed because he's a political prisoner, and more and stronger opposition is, the bigger opposition is, the more chances we have to topple Nikol Pashinyan's government.
You mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you want to go through every legal possible way to do this. Nikol Pashinyan has shown that he will do anything to retain his seat. He will play dirty. He doesn't hesitate to take illegal steps. He controls the police, the army, what's left of it, the judges, the attorney general, even the intel service, which spies and gathers compromat on everyone, including everyone in the church. He has shown that whenever an opposition movement gains momentum, he'll throw the leadership in jail, pretrial detention for months and months until the movement loses momentum and dissipates. But you know what? Who am I talking with? You spent 15 months or whatever, a year and a half in jail. So I'm not the one to remind you of this.
Including house arrest, yes, it was more than 2 years.
Okay.
Yes, we are ready for that.
Are you ready for a situation
Yes.
where he's just going to do all these things and there's no legal recourse? What if the impeachment process becomes a thing and the next thing you know, the opposition leaders are all arrested and thrown in jail?
You know, personally, I am ready for that because if something doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. You know, it's I'm citing the Nietzsche, I guess. So this prison time didn't kill me. On the contrary, it made me stronger. My party is rooted in this political background. I mean, has been underground party in Soviet time for their political dissident ideas. So it's not, we are not afraid of these possible developments. But most important thing, if your proposed by you or cited by you approach is so inevitable for every authoritarian regime to cling to the power, changes would never happen in the world. So every autocrat tried to do all the bunch of repressions you just listed. So imprisonment, dirty games, etc., etc. How many of them survived? I mean, politically survived. So if we really are successful in mobilizing the public, not only public opinion. So let me say it, maybe in bad English, but in good heart. Maybe it's not enough to mobilize the public opinion. It's because public opinion is against Pashinyan. It's clear by any survey.
Every poll shows it.
Yeah, it's very important to mobilize public actions because opinion is a passive phenomenon. Participation is a very important thing. So if every citizen who is against Pashinyan policies and saying no to Pashinyan in polls makes efforts to go to the streets, but not once. So a majority of Armenians, I guess, believes that, you know, the miracle would happen if they all gather for one day on the Republic Square. No, miracles are not happening by one actions.
Right.
So even 2018 was a process. It was a process prepared during the years by underground network of
NGOs and everything.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very specific NGOs, because I have nothing against NGOs itself. Very specific, let me say, NGOs doing very dirty work for against Armenia and for some external actors. So it's very important to transform public opinion into public actions. And I think the failure of the biggest movement, I mean, Sarpazan movement, was because they, organizers, with all my due respect and open heart for their fight. I was imprisoned, unfortunately. They are now imprisoned, the leaders, I mean, Bagrat, Sarpazan, etc., and other leaders. But their failure was because they were able to light up the hearts of the people, but they were not able to provide enough hope and energy for the actions. And we don't want this oppositional initiative, I mean impeachment, to be another shot in the dark. But we don't need this, especially before elections. You can see that any failure of oppositional fight against Pashinyan, the last failure will be the biggest one. In the logic of campaign, the future campaign, who failed the last attempt to topple Pashinyan regime will suffer the most.
Yeah.
So Republican Party is taking the biggest risk, even in electoral logic. What we are saying, let's try again. Let's try again before elections. If we don't succeed, you can put all the mistakes on us during electoral campaign. So we understand the logic, we understand the risks. But I think even the staunchest opposition, if I could say, the strongest opposition, sometimes needs a makeover. And Armenian opposition, even parliamentary one, even my party, including, needs a makeover to restart, to rethink and restart. And elections are not the best opportunity to do that. Because as I said before, if we have a common race, it's not a good idea to ride your own horse separately.
Now, Pashinyan has said that the alternative to him is going to be war. He's already setting up his campaign. You know, he's going to be brandishing that piece of paper like a sword, saying, I brought you peace, I brought you peace. It's obvious that he has the support of every single sort of, European and foreign, Western institution, almost. But what do you think about this dichotomy between it's either him or vote for war in the upcoming, whenever there's a change of power?
Another false narrative, which is nourished by official propaganda, by administrative leverages. Yes, this is the story he is trying to sell to the people before elections. This is a clear-cut example of manipulation and distorting the facts. Because let's explain the fingers are very simple. What is peace about? When the peace can come, when it is secure. So peace is coming when it is secure. So peace is a consequence of security. If you have security, if you are secure, you will have peace. You can't have peace alone. There is no such kind of phenomena of peace without security. So it's crazy. The story he's trying to sell to the people is, sorry to say, he's thinking that Armenian people are really so stupid that they will believe in this tale of peace without security. It's impossible. So, first of all, what is our approach? Armenia needs security, And peace will come if Armenia is secure. If Armenia is insecure as now, peace would never come, because you can't have a peace by paper, even by prayers, because even prayers need actions. So even in case you are praying, you need to prove to the God that you are ready to be changed, to change yourself. So even prayers need action. There is no connection to the God without action from your side. There is no peace without additional efforts to make a country really secure. And when I say secure, it's not only about, how multi-layered is security now. It's not only about the army. It's not only about the forces. It's also about economy, about the information and disinformation. It's about cyberspace. So security is much more inclusive and broader context of the peace. So what is trying to sell to Armenian people? The peace itself doesn't exist, let me say. So if it's not guaranteed by security mechanism, it's only a piece of paper which is not worth the money of the paper itself.
Mr. Ashotyan, there has been a lot of talk how Azerbaijan and Turkey have essentially declared Pashinyan as their favorite candidate for the next elections in Armenia, assuming that Pashinyan knows that at the moment that he is deposed, Aliyev, Azerbaijan, is going to attack Armenia. Is the opposition actually ready for war? Are you ready to deploy the army to defend the borders? Because it seems to me that Pashinyan is not ready for that.
Your story, your question based on real facts, because in 2018, and this is already it is proven, Nikol Pashinyan begged Aliyev not to shoot on the borders, saying that he has parliamentary elections in 2018, and to prevent Republicans to come back to make a revenge. So it's necessary to keep peace on the borders.
Do you mean 2021 or 2018?
No, I mean 2018 in Dushanbe. And Aliyev disclosed this dialogue just after the recent war, and Pashinyan didn't react. So I take it as a reality, because it's very clear that this happened unfortunately, this happened like President Aliyev said. So now I can't reject the idea that Nikol Pashinyan can ask Aliyev to shoot in case of his failure. But Nikol Pashinyan is not a magician. It's not the master of the world. He is not, maybe he is ruling Armenia as a country, but he is not ruling the region. And moreover, he is not ruling the globe. So I do believe that in case Armenian peoples succeed in their fight against Pashinyan regimes, we will get not war, but we will get a pause, very essential pause for us. And if it is legitimate, that is why it's very important to have a constitutionally proven change of the power in Armenia. If this is legitimate change of the power, and the vote of no-confidence is very legitimate way to change the government in every democratic country, or at least on paper democratic country. So I don't believe that Nikol and Aliyev will be able to play this card of the war in this region against Armenian people, if Armenian people finally take their future in their own hands. I want to repeat it, by constitutionally legitimate mechanism.
All right, Mr. Ashotyan, thank you again very much for your time. And you have been, and we have abused even more than you had. So thank you again. And we hope that you can come back sometime in the future when we have more questions for you.
But maybe next time I will be back to my previous shape, and I mean previous before arrest shape, and we will be able to speak without these poses and some funny for me, retrospectively funny for me mistakes. So, sorry.
We look forward to it, and we wish you
Thank you
guys
very
much
much.
success.
Thanks a lot, Asbed. Thanks a lot, Hovik. Thanks a lot. Good
Talk
luck.
to you soon.
Have a nice day.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's our show today, Hovik. This episode, we recorded it on September 17, 2025. We've been talking with Armen Ashotyan. He's the vice president of the Republican Party of Armenia, which is one of the factions in the Badi Vunem alliance in the parliament. From 2005 to 2007, Mr. Ashotyan was a member of the National Assembly and chaired the Committee on Foreign Relations. From 2009 to 2017, Ashotyan served as Minister of Education and Science. In 2017, Ashotyan was elected to the parliament again and served there until December 2018, the snap parliamentary elections.
Well, here we are. This was a very interesting interview for us. It will probably be specific to Armenia, so it won't get a lot of views, but I'm pretty sure for those who want quality coverage of Armenian politics, you're getting it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So we appreciate you listening and watching. And if you appreciate us doing this and spending all of our time preparing this podcast, then we will also appreciate if you could show that by commenting, liking, sharing, and if you can, and if you want to, then also donating to us, because that helps us reach out to more people. You can donate by going to podcasts.grung.org/donate. And that's much more convenient for us than looking for money on the darker sides of the web. So I'm sure you don't want us going there. So please consider helping us out.
All right. Thank you, Hovik. So when you go to podcasts.grung.org/donate, pick Patreon or pick Buy Me a Coffee, become a sustaining member and give regularly, or just buy us a coffee.
I'm Hovik Manucharyan in hot Glendale, California.
And I'm Asbed Bedrossian, same place. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.